Hi, I'm Shulin, a multidimensional coach devoted to helping you remember who you are and move forward with clarity, purpose, and inspired action. My work blends grounded coaching with intuition-based tools like Reiki, astrology, channeling, and Akashic Healing. I hold a space of sacred neutrality where you can hear your soul clearly and take aligned soul-led action. Inside this space, we explore your purpose, intuition, relationships, goals, and what's truly calling you forward. Today, I'm joined by Amy, and I'm so honored that she agreed to share a glimpse of her multidimensional journey and our work together with you. Hi, Amy.
Hi,
Thanks for being here with us.
thanks for having me.
Awesome. So, I always like to start out and just chat a little bit about how we know each other. So, do you want to share a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, we came to know each other actually through a move you were having. Um, I was part of a team that sort of helped people transition from their homes to alternate spaces, kind of managed the overall process and had people pack and, organize so that you didn't have to do it. And yeah, so that's how we initially met. And of course, at the time, I was going through my own sort of healing journey, which was kind of interesting because I didn't know anything about, you and your life. And we just sort of happened to connect and start a conversation. I think, mostly because I had seen the things in your home and just sort of knew what some items were and, some sound bowls, singing bowls, and just was sort of curious, and that led to us, sort of talking a little bit deeper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's, I want to touch on that a little bit of what was going on for you, but I will just add it was such a magical meeting when we first came together. First of all, you and your team were just absolute angels because I was still coming out of some of my health journey and just to have that support really supported me physically. But not only that, because you and I aligned in on that spiritual level, even though we didn't know it at first, but we had a sense about that, and then we talked for a while. I just really felt your energy as well and the care that you and your team put into handling my objects. And of course, you saw my crystals and sound bowls and my oracle cards and all of that. And I
Mhm.
think you and I spoke for like 2 hours when we first came together,
Yeah,
initially to plan the move, but then we just started talking and talking about all
yeah,
sorts of things. And and then on your phone, my magical number, 1144
right.
showed up randomly and we saw that. So I snapped a photo of that. And of
Yeah,
course, there were just many signs on our journey of getting to know each other. But
absolutely.
can you
Absolutely.
share a little bit more? So, what was going on in your life at that time that
Yeah.
when you had the opportunity for us to work together, you reached out?
Yeah, so I mean, I had been on this probably 5, 6 year sort of struggle of kind of dealing with like some guilt and shame and major life transitions and traumas. And I was having a lot of difficulty releasing that. And so that year, I had just started really, I guess, more focused work on identifying what was happening in my life and how I might be able to, um, better navigate the journey, so to speak. So, particularly, I guess I really focused on a lot of self-compassion work during that time, building connection and like holistic care. So, really focusing on the mind, body, spirit connection. And it was the first time I had actually, again, prior to meeting you, done EFT. So for me, that, combining that tapping and pressure points was like the first time I think I had this real release of a lot of this pain that I had just been holding on to. And prior to that, I think really a lot more intellectualizing. So I tend to, do a lot of reading, and I thought I could like think my way out of a lot of things. And I was just having a lot of trouble, just I guess moving to that next level. And so I'm more of an analytical type person. And so the spiritual realm sort of intrigues me, but I was not necessarily initially on that path. And so I think the timing of sort of meeting you was just it's like so many synchronicities that day. And it really did feel like I had known you for a long time and, was super connected, and you held space for me and listened in a way that, it just I think made me feel comfortable with this idea of, okay, what do you offer, and what are the opportunities that I might have to learn more and try to like step into something a little bit deeper.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And I think you bring up a really good point, which is, finding somebody that you feel safe with.
Mhm.
Even when you feel a draw, you can at the same time feel a little bit of hesitation, especially mental hesitation. I
Yeah.
know when I was early in my healing journey, I was very much drawn, but my mind was chattering away a mile a minute, questioning everything. And it was almost like this duality happening, but I was still so drawn. So kudos to you for really feeling that draw, continuing with it, even when your mind was running a little bit.
Yeah, but I think, I mean, again, I would say this is the benefit of working with you, right? And is you create that space, that safe space where you can sort of explore even the resistance that you feel. And I think I shared with you, during it, there I was super excited about a lot of things that, we uncovered, but I was also feeling a little bit resistant. But I think for me, the thing that really made it super powerful was the opportunity to like really step into the resistance and have that conversation, ask the questions. You gave me the answers and like found a way to integrate everything that I needed to hear in a way that I could hear it and still feel like, again, I didn't have to do it a certain way or perform. It was like it was very authentic and very real. And so, yeah, for me, that practical guidance, I think obviously you have a gift, and the ability to like kind of integrate it in a gentle but powerful way was super
Mm,
helpful.
Good. I'm so glad. I'm really glad. And you and I had a special opportunity because we were able to work together. You had a package. So we had 3 sessions that I think, sometimes people will do it maybe like one session a month, but I think we may have done it one a week for 3 weeks. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yes,
Yeah.
we jumped in. Yeah, so I had been gifted a transformation bundle, which was super exciting, to have that opportunity to kind of, go on this journey that I wasn't necessarily um, anticipating, but again, the opportunity just sort of like things aligned and gave me an opportunity to kind of explore this energetic, connection in a deeper way. And you had done Akashic record reading was like very, very powerful. Much about it, and it's sort of like as I learned more, it's like this magical library that kind of holds all of, this so to speak. I mean, you can probably, speak to it much more. You know much more about it than I did, but having the experience of what it meant for me and the opportunity to kind of like step into that was really powerful. And just again, sort of that exploration of beyond what we typically would consider or think about.
Yeah, it's really beyond the mind. And I think you articulated or described Akashic healing perfectly. The Akashic records are known as a vast library of energetic information about
Mm,
anything that you want to pull records about. And sometimes I even visualize like a library, going into a library, and just pulling off the book of Amy,
yeah.
right?
And
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 whatever
that's
else. Yeah.
yeah, it felt that way when it was happening. And I didn't, just to explain, like I didn't really know at first. I had done one Akashic record reading prior to meeting you. And it was a past life. And so it was dealing more with energetic connection, what do you call it? Severing certain ties or energetic boundaries that maybe
Like
we
soul
don't
contracts.
soul
Yeah.
contracts, and so it was a little bit of a different experience. But still I didn't have that much knowledge of it. And I think the first session I did with you, I didn't really ask any questions because I was sort of like, I don't know, what should I ask? Can I ask questions? And then what really opened it up for me was then having the second session we did where I came with like a list of questions. And then that was super powerful because every question sort of led me to more questions, more just this opportunity to sort of bring in things that I didn't anticipate, knowing. And then how did that feel, internally of like all of these, this exploration that you could have with, again, anything that you can think of, you can ask, and the universe, supplies an answer, which was wild to me.
Yeah, that's so true. It really is. It's infinite what you can bring to the table when you're doing this kind of session. And so I think if I recall correctly, so we had the three sessions,
Mm-hmm.
and I think we did one Reiki session,
Hmm.
right? And then
Yeah.
two Akashic Healing sessions.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
anything else you want to share about the sessions, the experience for you, what shifted, or even, having those two different types of sessions?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I found for me the power in the Akashic, record like that to me was super powerful because I think I was in a place where I was sort of searching for some answers and sort of this not knowing. And so that really unlocked a whole lot of things for me that sort of started this trajectory of my life, and really stepping into what I call, it's more my power of really believing that this was sort of aligned with who I am supposed to be. Whereas I think before I had this like sort of internal knowing of things, but like still not sure, not uncertain, and afraid somewhat to step into that power because of the fear of the unknown. And again, at the time, I was in one life and I sort of transitioned, through into this different one. And I feel like, yes, the healing that I did before meeting you was a good base of what I needed to start doing. But then this, the power in, I guess, unlocking this information for me and allowing these, sort of connections to happen, really opened my eyes to it felt like complete alignment. When I had my second session with you, um, I left like super charged. And I don't know if you recall, but it was like I really felt like, oh my gosh, like this is, could see the map so clearly that I had never seen before, right? I always said I might have had a map, but it wasn't all marked out clearly. So I had a little bit of knowing the direction I was moving, but I couldn't see it. And as soon as I had this session, I was like, oh my goodness, it was like perfectly aligned, and I could see the direction I needed to move, and I can, you know, and what I would share is after that session, and I don't know if you remember this too, I was like, I had a lot of resistance before the next session because I was like, what if this isn't real? What if, and I started to have all this doubt, and mostly because it's just like this idea of, again, resisting, the power of your life and like what can be, and this like, I don't know, it's just like it's bigger than you, so I think we're taught sometimes to like stay in our little box and not dream big and not go beyond what we know true. And I think that's where, sometimes we're held back. And I was sort of, being super analytical and reading so much. I think I lived a lot of that life of just you have to work hard and you have to do this and you can't really, it's like this realm beyond you. And I always believed in a power greater than myself, but it still was like I could feel the resistance. I wanted to believe, but then I was also, just doubting a little bit. And I think what was really powerful again for me was having the opportunity to talk through that with you. And not, because again, it's like I didn't want to offend you as to like, here you're sharing all this, the gift with me. And I was still, there's some resistance. Why is there resistance? It's not that I didn't feel comfortable. But I thought that was a great experience for me too, to like really step into that and talk through it. And what does it mean to resist this idea of again, this magical library with full of information that could be yours, but is it yours? And so, it was that talking through it though that helped me like really appreciate and value and believe, I guess, that this is in fact, it feels in alignment. So why am I resisting the alignment? It wasn't like you were sharing information that I was like, there's no way. It like everything that was shared made sense. And so I think that, it was just a reminder of like, it's okay to believe in the things you feel aligned with, and you don't have to resist it, and go down a different path.
Yeah, I think you bring up some wonderful points that are really helpful for anyone who's considering doing this kind of work. And I really appreciate you sharing so honestly and openly about your entire experience, not just the good stuff that was easy, but even
Right.
the stuff that came up that was a little challenging. And first of all, even just sharing, you identify as someone who's analytical, so more oriented toward the mind, which makes sense. Many of us are.
Hmm.
And so even experiencing those different sessions, the first one we did the Reiki session where you were on the table, it was purely energetic. And then I shared with you some insights, some channeled insights that came through after. I think we even recorded them so you would have it, and could play it later.
Right.
Um, but then to your point, you really resonated with more of the intuitive, active conversation because it sort of engaged the mind that you're more used to. That being said, then when it came to all the way engaging the mind, and I say this a lot because this came up, like I said, even early on in my healing journey, and it still comes up sometimes where I have to learn how to work with the mind and kind of quiet it and understand how it's participating and where it's resisting.
Hmm.
And, one of my earliest mentors, she said, your heart will understand, the mind will try to understand, but it's not going to understand as soon as the heart is going to understand. And so it's like a whole new way of living and being and
Yeah.
learning how to operate from the heart and bring the mind along with us as
Right.
opposed to leading from the mind. And I love that you took that time to really be with that and
Hmm.
assess. And I know you had a whole integration period
Hmm.
because then 8 months later, you had sent me a testimonial, which was so beautiful and poignant. I mean, you spoke to this huge transition in your life
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
how this supported you, even though there was some resistance, but how
Yeah.
things started to click and make sense
Yeah.
along the way after that. So, can you speak a little bit about what shifted and what was that integration period like for you?
Yeah. So I think, again, very honestly, like I wanted to believe this information that was being shared. But there was part of me, again, it's like when you lead with the heart versus the mind, or how it sort of, is connected, but then disconnected in other ways. So it was tough for me, but I really spent a lot of time thinking about it, and sort of still building my plan based on the information I had, because even though there was some resistance, it's like I did trust what I was receiving. And I think that's sort of the idea, is like if you can put trust and faith into the information you're given, why not? Why not have the opportunity to step into this power and believe this information is it's designed for me? It's the book of Amy, as you said. It's so why can't it be that? And so I was sort of, that was the resistance. Like, could it be? But what if it's not? But, and then it was like, but does it even matter? Does the question need to be answered? Does it even matter? Here's this information. It feels in alignment. So just step into it and trust and believe. And I think it's staying grounded, it's seeking the healing. It's where do you feel most comfortable. And for me, I started to really feel like, okay, this really is the path. And I did a little more exploration even into human design. Just, which was wild because that was also in alignment. Again, I'm not a big human design person, but I know enough to learn. And that it's like all of these messages coming from the universe all were sending me in the exact same direction. And so it's like, how can you not step into that? And so I spent that journey sort of figuring out what did I really want to do? What was I supposed to be doing in life? And it was really about figuring out how to integrate all the things that I wanted to do under one umbrella. And so I had already developed the Fluent Phoenix, which is like my transformational coaching company, but I wasn't putting a lot of energy into that. It was more like that was a gift for me. I was really creating that for my own healing because I needed more opportunities to learn and grow and teaching. It's like my background is education. I have a doctorate in leadership, and I spend a lot of time around people, but it's like that authentic guide, advisor person really came through, and again I had this picture you gave me, the information, and I could see how it all could be in alignment, which I couldn't understand before. I thought I had to give up one thing and not do something else, and so it's sort of like stepping into the role, continuing to be authentically me as that kind of advisor guide person in everything that I do. And so, yeah, it's like, I guess we're all on this powerful journey, and it's filled with, love and responsibility and wisdom, and it's how we, then choose to use the gifts we're given.
Yeah. And, you also mentioned this earlier that we are so conditioned to sort of be small.
Mm. Yeah.
And you've spoken so beautifully about how it took time for you to actually open yourself
Yeah.
to this map and this information and the way that it was laid out of your natural skills and abilities
Hmm.
and how it could express very fluidly in your life. Not to mention, I also recall you were very excited by it.
Oh, like I remember it being like lit up, and so like it felt like all the information that I absolutely needed. Um and when I say like that's the alignment piece, I don't know that everybody always gets it that way, right? So it's like information is given to us in all different bits and phases and pieces. So for me, I feel like everything was aligned at the right time, and I was asking the questions I needed to ask at the right time, to sort of get the answers. And I was open to hearing the answers, and that is where the power really was. And then it was like, as long as I could keep my mind open, it really it gave me the tools that I needed to kind of step forward and to do those things. And the reminder, it's like as we're talking, I remember how powerful the session was. I mean, like literally, I was like, that was the best set thing that I have ever done. And I felt so much value, in it. And I think, it's like receiving the opportunity. And that was, I hadn't written the testimonial. It was on my mind and on my mind. And then I just got caught up in doing my own thing, but it was still always there. And so to come back and be like, this was such a pivotal time for me to have the opportunity to step into this, hear this, have that alignment, and this deep sense of peace. Like I felt so, it just felt right. And that's the best way I can describe it. I was super jazzed up about it. And then I was struggling with, why am I resisting this? Because I was so excited. But I think that's real, and that's part of the journey too. And it's like the pre-programming that we have in our lives and what conditioning we've have to say, like, is all of this real? Is this, can you believe beyond, what you see day to day? And I think the more open we are, the more opportunities we have to learn more about ourselves and, everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. I feel like you're a great example of somebody who, you're constantly striving, you're constantly bettering yourself, you're constantly doing your work, and you were ready. You were ready, you were willing. And of course, it's just natural that we receive, like you said, we receive information. Sure, it may light us up, it may answer all of our questions. And then right after the session, it's like,
Mm,
wait, was that real? what
Right.
do I do with that now? Because I always say, the session is like a springboard.
Hmm.
It
Hmm.
kicks things off, but the work, it doesn't end at the session.
Right.
The
Yeah.
session is just the kickoff, and then it's like, okay, now how are you going to integrate that?
Yeah.
What support do you need to integrate that? And what is that going to look like in your life over time through the
Hmm.
change and transformation that you're implementing with what you received?
Yeah.
And it sounds like you did so beautifully, and it's so wonderful to hear the update. So how's it going now? What are you up to? You have
Yeah.
your transformational company.
Yeah, so I still
Okay.
have that, and it's that's great. And I have a lot of accountability partners in life who are all on this sort of I'm like on this personal development journey. It's like I try to like show up each day and embrace the day, with like it's like optimism and resilience and just show up and be the best version of myself. And so what I've done is been able to surround myself with people who bring that same energy or similar energy. And I feel like that makes all the difference, right? Proximity is power. And the more we're around the people who kind of guide us and give us that energy and help, in our alignment, then that kind of drives where we're going to go. And so, um, yeah, I mean I need to do a little more with the coaching company, but I've also kind of transitioned a little bit of that. So it's like now I've actually built more with like entrepreneurs as opposed to just before it was really the focus was on um just really transformation, overcoming obstacles, and like how that kind of propels you into a different space and sort of being the lighthouse or the keeper of like, here's what happened to me, this is kind of my journey. And it's like transformation through challenge, so to speak, because we all have so many challenges we're facing. And what you realize is like your story can be powerful, but it's not really about you. Your story is about everybody else. And so the more you're willing to share and open up, and, it's like then you have, again, this ability to kind of impact others and bring other people along their journey. And so, you know, I, yeah, so I shifted a little bit into a wider kind of range of like, okay, I'm doing a little bit of business development and some things with that. And then I started doing real estate, which, it's like, how does that align with all of this? But it actually does because it's part of the transformational journey. It's giving people the opportunity to step into a home and change their entire trajectory potentially. And so, it's how you show up and how you listen. And I feel like, again, it's like I'm just the advisor, the guide on the journey. I'm giving opportunity and sharing information, and that is my role. Like I just view it always, no matter what I'm sort of doing, like that's the role that I want to play. And it does feel in alignment. And that is the message that was given to me. And it seems to apply in every area that I'm in. So no matter what I do, I try to just kind of keep that in mind and show up with that same energy. And, my job isn't to convince. My job is just to present the information and, just guide, just kind of, see if I can have it happen. And I think make an impact, right? So it's like, however I can make a positive impact. Let me just put it, let me frame it a little further, right? It's not just we can all have an impact, but I want to do it in such a positive way. And so it's how you show up every day. It's who you are, and it's these opportunities for healing and energetically, absolutely, right? Like I think the more we're aware of what's happening when we're depleted, when we're not, how do we kind of realign our energy? It just has us show up in a more positive way every day for everybody else and ourselves. I'm much more aware of, while it still happens, I'm much more aware of how much I'm giving and what my boundaries should be energetically and what they're not. And I think before, some of this work, I just wouldn't cut off the boundary. I'd be feeling the pain of all my clients and living their life for them and not really severing that tie. It's like it's okay to be, empathetic, but how are you, how are you kind of protecting yourself as you're going through the process? And I think um, as somebody who does want to be kind and share that kindness and support, sometimes I was losing a little bit of myself in the process because I was so energetically tapped. And so again, I think with all of this work, it's like it's just helpful in having a better understanding of the whole process. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. And a better understanding of self.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing, Amy. Thank you so much for sharing everything that you have shared and sharing your story and the work that you do, which it sounds like you and I do very similar work actually in different arenas.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, just as we wrap up, what would you say to someone who's feeling drawn to this work, but also a little hesitant or unsure?
Yeah. I think the idea is if you can um sort of just trust in the process, trust yourself enough to trust and believe. And then, I think seeking healing is the most empowering thing there is, right? That self-care, self-love. And if you come from that place, then the work you're doing and this opportunity kind of it's a gift. And so I think being open-minded and being willing to receive, it sort of opens doors that sometimes you don't anticipate. And I think that's, the beauty of being exposed to different things. I mean, there's so many options, and in even what you offer, there's so many paths. So it's like if one doesn't feel okay, maybe to try a different one. And so again, it's like where you're going to get the most alignment. I think the more you try things, the more you're willing to step into it and just take a little bit of a risk. But again, I think it's the safe environment, right? And so aligning with somebody like yourself who creates that safe space, who's willing to kind of talk through whatever you're feeling as you're going through the process is really important. And I think maybe that's the piece too, right? It's aligning with somebody who really understands you, where you're coming from. I think that kind of helps you. If you're already a resistor, that becomes a super important piece. You need somebody who's going to support you through the entire process and not just, throw you into an experience unless you really are ready for it. You're ready to step into that. And I definitely stepped into a lot of different things that I wasn't ready for, and in this journey. And and each experience teaches you something. So it's like as long as you can reflect and kind of take something out of it too, it's like if I learn one thing, that's great. That experience, it doesn't matter what it is. It's like I could have one little takeaway. But I think there's endless opportunity in front of you to learn and grow and heal and be exposed to different things if you just keep an open mind.
Yeah, I agree, and that's beautifully said. And also I'm so grateful that you and I had this special opportunity of the transformation pack, which was at the time it was a series of 3 sessions.
Mhm.
And I believe also I was doing a special at the time, but basically you and I were able to have almost like a mini coaching container. So to
Mhm.
your point, we were able to talk through some things during the individual sessions, but then we also had contact in between the sessions if there was any kind of anything you wanted to discuss or just kind of put out there to me so I could support your integration
Mhm.
ongoing between the sessions for the time that we were working together. So I'm really glad we had that time also.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it's like the best thing to do is have, I think, something in mind of what your goal is, because that's the best way to achieve it also, right? So it's like I mean, I went in, I think the first session with you with no expectation whatsoever. And then it's like, I mean, that could be great too. But if you're looking for answers, sometimes it's good to have that clarity before taking action so that what are you really seeking. But I think any opportunity to try something with somebody who holds that safe space for you can be super powerful.
Yeah, you're going to get something one way or the other. That's for sure.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Well, thank you, Amy, so much. Your presence and your words are truly a gift. If you're watching this and you're feeling the pull, I do offer soul guidance sessions and mentorships, and you can reach out or explore more at shulenaurora.com. Amy, this was such a pleasure to have this conversation with you and to hear how well you're doing and just everything. And we will put your contact. So I'll get the information from you if people want to check out your transformation coaching
Yeah,
company, or
absolutely.
any other details about the work that you do. I'll put them in the show
Absolutely.
notes. Okay,
Sounds
great. Thanks,
great.
Amy.
Thanks, Julian.